Welcome to Caribbean Business Review, where insight meets impact. We bring you economic and financial updates, sharp statistical breakdowns, and data-driven insights on the forces shaping the region. Smart analysis, bold ideas, real Caribbean intelligence. This is CBR. Welcome to episode 7 of season 2 of the Caribbean Business Review. I'm Joseph Cox. Now, first of all, thank you very much for your continued support across all our social media channels, including NPR Radio. Our special guest this week is Keody Thompson, Global Realtor at Jamaica Sotheby's International Realty, as we explore the forces shaping the Caribbean's real estate boom. From affordability and diaspora investments to new development orders and the governance challenges ahead. In the CBR Briefing this week, we ask, vacancy or displacement? The hidden risks of copy-paste urbanism in the Caribbean. It's a dispassionate look at how fast our cities are growing and whether we are importing models that don't fit our own realities. But before we dive in, there's an issue that we must raise. Now, we begin this week with a security alert from the United States Embassy in Trinidad and Tobago, advising citizens to avoid all U.S. government facilities throughout the holiday weekend. The notice reignited concern over regional security and the Caribbean's long-held identity as a zone of peace, a concept central to investor confidence, tourism, and the region's broader diplomatic posture. Since then, CARICOM has issued a formal statement reaffirming that principle, emphasizing dialogue, international law, and cooperation against narco-trafficking and the illicit arms trade. Notably, Trinidad and Tobago reserved its position, highlighting the delicate balance between sovereignty, security, and collective credibility in an uncertain regional environment. The statement steadies the narrative, but also reminds us that the strength of the zone of peace idea depends not only on principle, but on preparedness. Now, I'll be watching this story very closely, but for now, let's turn to the developments we are tracking this hour in Market Watch and Global Pulse. Coming up in the Market Watch, landlord surcharges and asset taxes on the financial sector in Trinidad, Liberty launches a 5G network in Barbados, and Newport in Jamaica to tap into Guyana's construction boom. Then in Global Pulse, U.S.-China trade war extends to global shipping, global foreign investment plummets, and major global oil glut looming. All that and more this hour on Market Watch and Global Pulse. Coming up next is the CBR Briefing. This is your CBR Briefing. I'm Joseph Cox. Now, at this year's Maurice Facey lecture, urban planner Brent Todorian suggested that a vacancy tax charging owners who leave buildings idle could help revive Jamaica's capital. It's an idea that sounds simple, even elegant. Make it costly to hoard property, and investors will either redevelop or sell. But beneath that logic lies a question with regional resonance. What really counts as vacant in the Caribbean? In cities like Kingston, Bridgetown, Port of Spain, and Nassau, a property can look abandoned yet be caught in probate, starved of financing, or frozen in bureaucracy. And globally, the definition of vacancy is expanding. Underutilization now includes a half-occupied building, a single-story shop on high-density land, even a modest bungalow where zoning allows a tower. That idea has already crept into Jamaican policy. Under the KSA and Pedro K's development order of 2023, building heights are unlimited, and FAR ratios will stretch up to 1 to 10 in downtown Kingston and 1 to 6 in New Kingston. In effect, the notional development value of many lots has multiplied overnight. If a vacancy or underuse tax were layered on top of that framework, a retiree living quietly in a one-story home could be branded economically inefficient and taxed accordingly. The parallel is Singapore, where state-owned land and tight planning controls let government push intensification. A bungalow on land zoned for a 30-story tower is taxed as potential high-rise land. But seniors there get rebates, deferrals, and relocation support. Without those cushions, the same policy would amount to displacement by design. If introduced uncritically here, such a tax could spark three outcomes. 1. Sharp assessment hikes as property values reflect what could be built, not what is built. 2. Speculative pressure from investors chasing trapped value. And 3. Loss of intergenerational wealth as elderly owners are forced to sell family homes. Across the Caribbean, where property often anchors household wealth, that's not renewal, it's erosion. And there's another wrinkle, the rise of short-term rentals. From Kingston to Bridgetown, hundreds of homes operate part-time as Airbnbs, empty for months, busy in peak season. Without nuance, a vacancy tax could treat these as idle assets, penalizing small local hosts while large resort operators lobby for exemptions. A smarter model would require registration, occupancy thresholds, and data sharing to distinguish genuine vacancy from seasonal use. So what would a grounded Caribbean approach look like? Registry before revenue. Build a transparent, vacant, and underutilized properties register under KSAMC and the NLA. Carrot and stick. Combine light levies with rehabilitation incentives, fast-track permits, grants, and time-bound rebates. Social safeguards, exempt seniors, low-income owners, and heritage sites. Allow levy deferral until sale or inheritance. Because urban renewal should never become urban eviction. The Caribbean's challenge isn't a shortage of ideas. It's the uncritical import of other people's solutions. Our cities struggle less with speculative vacancy than with weak titles, shallow credit markets, and a policy bias that treats land purely as capital. A vibrant downtown Kingston won't come from taxation alone. It needs security, walkability, cultural activation, and inclusive financing that let residents share in, not flee from redevelopment. Vacancy taxes make headlines, but in our context, the real vacancy isn't in the buildings, it's in the policy imagination. What Jamaica needs isn't copy-paste urbanism, but Caribbean urbanism, renewal that values both density and dignity. Downtown Kingston doesn't need imported blueprints. It needs renewal built for our climate, our culture, and our people. This is your 90-second market brief. A major shakeup at Caribbean Airlines. Multiple executives have resigned and a new governance audit is underway. Its long overdue 2016 accounts reveal a $695 million loss and a $2.2 billion deficit, with auditors citing weak controls and missing records. In Trinidad and Tobago, the $59.2 billion budget balances reliefs and new levies, cutting fuel prices, removing VAT on basic foods, and introducing a 0.25% asset tax on banks and insurers. The IMF says Haiti met all program targets, building reserves to $1.5 billion and maintaining zero monetary financing. In Jamaica, the Port Authority is weighing a new export port in St. Thomas to serve Guyana's construction boom, while remittances rose 4.6% in July and inflation climbed 0.8% in September. The Cayman Islands will raise $209 million in new fees, while Liberty Caribbean launched Barbados' first 5G network, targeting full coverage by 2026. American Airlines will expand Caribbean service, adding routes to Jamaica, Dominica, the Bahamas, and Puerto Rico as travel demand surges. Elsewhere, Antigua's Social Security Board plans to lift reserves to $1 billion EC, while Bahamas gaming operators seek a 25-year license extension. Now that's your 90-second market brief. I'm Joseph Cox. For more, look for us on YouTube and Spotify.
In a world of constant change, insight is your greatest asset. At Joseph Cox & Associates, we empower innovation across the Caribbean. Whatever your challenge, we can help. We're proudly customer-centric, offering bespoke solutions tailored tailored to every partner. From innovation and digital transformation to leadership and policy, our services are designed to deliver lasting impact. We partner with leaders across sectors, from finance and government to energy, tech, and infrastructure, helping them navigate complexity with confidence. Our work is grounded in collaboration. We connect regional leaders through powerful networks, driving change through joint research. Discover more at josephcox.org. Joseph Cox and Associates. Insight, experience, impact.
Still ahead on Caribbean Business Review, our conversation with Keody Thompson, Global Realtor at Jamaica Sotheby's International Realty, as we discuss the Caribbean real estate boom.
What people are looking for has changed a lot. As you know, we are now, millennials are in their 40s, they're in middle management, they're having families and so on. We have found that even in the demand, right? The demand is geared towards gated communities, apartments, whereas maybe in the 70s, you would have more, the demand would be more towards a single residence.
Continue. Welcome back to Caribbean Business Review. I'm Joseph Cox. And today our very special guest is Keody Thompson, who is a global realtor. Did I get it right, ma'am?
Yes. You
At the, what is it now? Jamaica Sotheby's International Realty. I'm not sure why all of that, but okay. But suffice it to say, she's a global realtor. Keody has been in the not too distant past either. She has been with Coldwell Banker. She has gotten the Coldwell Banker International Sterling Society in 2019 and 2020. She's a top 20 producer 2019, 2020, 2021. At the Sotheby's, she has the highest gross commission income in 22, most closed rentals in 22, and most closed sales in 2022. Now, as I welcome you to this program, Keody, my question is this: when do you sleep?
You know, Joseph, when you love what you do, you don't even it all balances itself out. Because when you're in love with what you do, you're living a balanced life no matter what. So I get my rest, and sometimes I'm up till 2 a.m. working. And you know, it works out, but work is fun a lot of times more than anything else. So I love it.
Well, as I said, later on in our conversation, I'm going to ask you about the times when it's not so fun, because
Okay.
I'm quite aware of some of the things, particularly you women suffer in terms of real estate and when you're doing your jobs. But Keody, I'm curious. There is currently a real estate boom right across this region. And my question is simply this, that the economies are not exactly in what I would consider to be the greatest shape, but yet still the market is booming and there's no question about it. What from where you sit, from your experience, what is driving the real estate boom? Where is customers coming from? Where is all of this coming from?
Well, first, let me say that the boom is localized. It's not spread across the island equally. So it's not monolithic where you can say Jamaica is experiencing a boom. There are certain areas in Jamaica that are experiencing a boom, and there are certain areas in less active parishes, maybe like St. Elizabeth, Clarendon, that you're not going to see that. You can't phrase it in the same way to say those parishes, for example, are experiencing a boom. In the areas like the tourism sector, in the city, in the corporate area, Kingston, Ocho Rios, St. Thomas is experiencing a boom right now. So it's very localized. What is driving it? I mean, the world changed. That's one thing. The world changed after COVID, right? So you have persons who are able to work remotely. You have digital nomads, people redefine what home is. So home is no longer necessarily stationary for many people. Just to give you a practical example, I have many clients who I have leased properties to, sold properties to, who they live in Jamaica, but they don't earn in Jamaica. They're working remotely. So they choose to live in paradise. They can go to the beach on the weekends. They can get the best stuff, the best food in the world, which is Jamaican food, and they can still do their work. So I think the world opened up and it kind of recategorized how people saw their lives playing out in terms of, do I need to live in, wherever for the rest of my life? No, you don't. What is driving the boom again? You see a lot of the diaspora investing in investment properties in Jamaica, specifically for short-term rentals. I have found that much of the diaspora, I'm yet to find anyone from the diaspora who do not want to own a piece of Jamaica, no matter what. Like, Jamaicans are very proud people. We love Jamaica, and no matter where in the world they are, you find they still want to own something back home. And because of short-term rentals, that has created an avenue for them to do that. So if you buy an investment property and you're doing well, the mortgage can take care of itself, and you have the peace of knowing, I own something in Jamaica. This is my home, and you can benefit from capital investment at the same time, from capital increases in the value of the property. And so that is one factor that is driving it. I think we also have, in any market, governance is very important. Having stable governance is very important to the growth and the boom in any society. If a society or a country is deemed unstable, they're not gonna necessarily see such a great increase in interest in investing in that country. But when we have a stable economy, I think for the past couple of years, we can say that we've seen so much growth in the infrastructure in Jamaica. Road projects. We have the highway to Mandeville that opened up. When that happened, for example,
Right.
it created so much opportunity for people to now live in Mandeville and work in Kingston, or vice versa. And so these infrastructure developments, it creates opportunities, it opens up the island, and that is a part of what is driving the boom. Like, persons can, be able to invest in more affordable areas. So these are some of the factors really that is driving the boom in certain areas.
No, I hear you on that, but then on the other hand, I'm looking at it through the prism where a number of what I call it middle income earners, etc. You hear the complaints, and I'm not saying that is everybody, but you hear the complaints that they functionally feel that they're priced out of the market. And I'm just wondering, how does one affect that balance now? So, for example, every now and again you see people coming up asking for, if people on social media rather, if people know of a place that's like 2-3 bedrooms below a certain price point, which obviously means that that's where they can afford. But there's a seemingly a functional disconnect between that demand um, cohort then and the wider market. Is that your experience?
Well, yes, the truth is many Jamaicans really, they still struggle with affordability, as you rightfully stated. Factors contributing to this is wages, credit terms with the banks as well, uh, down payments. We're in a market where the minimum down payment, for the most part, in some cases it can be less, but across the board is about 10% minimum for down payment, and that can and does prove challenging for many Jamaicans, and it does remain a barrier for middle income buyers. But I will say that there have been several projects, and I think, for example, recently the NHD announced that they're doing apartment complex somewhere near Winrow Road, near Deanery, and they were inviting applicants. So I do still see a drive to create more housing for the middle income market. But there are certain markets that I will say, like in the tourism sector, where you have high yielding properties where you can get a higher return on your investment. Naturally, it's also going to be highly priced in terms of getting into that if it's going to be a high yielding asset. So, so you have those, and in any country, you're going to have certain areas where you have more low income, because the truth is, the people of the nation, we have to live somewhere, right? And, we are seeing more projects that are coming on board for middle income earners, but we cannot ignore that there are challenges, not just in terms of the supply, but in terms of just funding, interest rates, wages. These are all factors that contribute to it.
No, again, fine. I take that point, but at the same time, and I soon switch to the wider Caribbean, because there are countries where you're seeing even a greater jump now what's happening in Jamaica. But for example, just to stick to Jamaica for a moment, under the new Kingston and St. Andrew, what is it now? Kingston and St. Andrew Development Order. One of the things that they have brought to the table is that we now have pretty much unlimited building heights. And with that comes another challenge, because once you do that, then the zoning of the properties, a lot of the properties will change. Whether it's downtown Kingston, New Kingston, Havendale, whatever, right? The value of the properties and the zoning will change. And what I'm looking at now is, to what extent are we going to see, from where you see the market now, are we looking at displacement down the line? Some persons going to be displaced? Because, for example, in the States and in other countries, they have certain types of homestead exemptions, etc., in terms of property taxes. We don't have that in Jamaica at all. So I'm just wondering, as the market evolves and with all these new laws and policies that are put on the table, are we likely to see basically a upending of the market and a complete transformation?
This is a very delicate question, Joseph, because the consideration for any country seeking to grow, to develop, is change. Change is a must if we're to move from point A to point B. And change, in fact, it does come with teething pains, but I think it also comes with even more opportunities as we do evolve. You look on a city like New York and many cities across the world where, there was urbanization, and now you have a full-fledged city that has invited even more investment and more opportunities. Now, to answer your question specifically, will we see displacement? I think that the demographic of what people are looking for has changed a lot. As we are now, millennials are in their 40s, they're in middle management, they're having families and so on. We have found that even in the demand, right? The demand is geared towards gated communities, apartments, whereas maybe in the 70s, you would have the demand would be more towards a single resident home. You find now that for even security reasons, many young families prefer to live within a gated community, within a townhouse complex. So while there's displacement, I always try to look on things on the different sides of the coin, because there may be displacement, but also this is where the demand is going. This is where the millennials want to live, or how they want to live now. So a lot of the high-rise buildings that's going up, it is a conversion of maybe one or two single resident properties that's now being turned into a high-rise building. I know in anything in life, there's never going to be 100% agreement on anything. But I personally think that, Kingston, for example, Kingston doesn't have that much land space. Like, say, for example, St. Elizabeth or Clarendon or Manchester, Hanover, where we have great land masses where, these areas are easily able to continue having single resident homes and the demand is there. In Kingston, the demand is there for Kingston. You have people going to universities every year that's coming into Kingston. And when they finish universities, they get a job in corporate. They're not leaving Kingston. So how do we satisfy the demand for the city when really we don't have the landmass to go wide? We can only go up. So, we are in fact solving a problem, but I get that some people may not be pleased. So while this problem is being solved for somebody who lives at a single resident home may have an apartment complex as their neighbor. And I totally understand like that would not be something that I would love, but also development is going to continue to take place because this move into the city is not going to stop. And we
No,
have to
I
keep
hear you on
going.
that, but and I hear you on that, and I would agree with you 100%. But for one factor, a good portion of this city has been basically abandoned. We all know this, right? But I suppose over time and with redevelopment, the regeneration exercises will take
Well,
place.
that has already started. Look at downtown Kingston. Downtown Kingston is one of those places where you have so many abandoned buildings. But in the past couple of years, we have seen a revitalization of downtown Kingston. There were policies put in place for tax breaks for people who invested in downtown Kingston. We have seen the art sector develop in downtown Kingston now, where people feel safe to walk and browse. You have celebrities coming to Jamaica who have gone downtown to these art walks and walk in the street of downtown Kingston. 10 years ago, this could not be the case. So I think it is going to take time to get there, where the areas that we would say are more or less abandoned, we will incorporate that in the overall growth plan for the city. And I think that is happening. But also it is going to take a buy-in from everybody. It's going to take a buy-in from the corporate sector who can afford to buy into these properties and redevelop them. It takes a buy-in from, but we're seeing it. It is happening. I'll give you a very lifestyle centric example. Stush in the Bush, for example, it's a I should say experience type of restaurant in St. Anne. They just won an award they're in the top 50 restaurants in North America, I believe. And they just opened a location in downtown Kingston. Okay. And so
That I didn't
you
know.
find that these areas, yeah. So it is happening. The wheels are turning, maybe slowly, but it is turning. It is turning.
No, all right, fair enough. But then, all right, from your vantage point, what is the hottest aspect of the market from where you sit?
The hottest aspect?
Yes, meaning what segment of the market is really moving now? Is it the top end, almost luxury end? Is it the tourist end?
The hottest
What is
end of
what is
the
moving?
market, the hottest end of the market right now, I would say, is the STRs, which is a short-term rental market. So properties that can be used for that is because I would say a vast number of the buyers now are overseas, and most of them are buying. So all these developments that you're seeing in Kingston, at least 70% of them at least are bought from, persons overseas. And for some, the goal is short-term rental or short-term rental until they move back to Jamaica. So that is where you will see the most activity in the market. We still have movement in other areas of the market because, of course, regular Jamaicans are always, owning a home is the number one goal for, I think, just about any human, in my opinion. And so obviously that side of the market is always going to be active, right? So there's always Jamaicans who are now seeking to own your own home. But I've also seen where local professionals who are buying prefer to buy an STR, a short-term rental investment property, before even owning a home to live in. So they will stay at their parents' house, or they will even continue to rent and buy a property that they use for short-term investment.
That makes sense, actually. It actually does make sense.
So
Um,
persons are
so
thinking
now,
more of,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no. Your point is well taken. But I'm also looking at the whole matter now. As we transition, we have to look at what is happening throughout the rest of the region. Because if
Mhm.
you think you said in certain segments in Jamaica, the market is hot, is booming. In most of the other Caribbean countries, all of the market is booming. There is, for example, Ghana. Ghana's property market is truly amazing. I mean, values, of course, we can all attribute it to the oil, the onset of
Right.
the oil investors, etc. But you're talking about property values jumping in the hundreds of percent over a 5-7 year period. And it has gotten to this stage where there is now an active shortage of materials to facilitate the boom. That is as drastic as it has become. And I'm therefore wondering again, because the region seems to have attracted more attention over the last, I don't know, call it 10 years, right? Than I've ever seen before. And I'm trying to still grapple with the idea. I mean, yes, I get the input of the diaspora, etc. But I'm still trying to understand what is it about our region that is attracting this interest.
I would love to answer this question. Thank you for asking me. I use every opportunity to tell people why this is the best place to live. And I choose to live here. You choose to live here. So you can start by answering the question by asking yourself, why do you choose to live here? Because I know you, Joseph, could live anywhere you wanted to live. So we choose to live here. But to answer your question, the Caribbean, I think the Caribbean has entered just a new phase in global real estate interest. And this is driven by lifestyle migration, remote work, again, international investors seeking stability, second homes, and citizenship opportunities. So you have certain Caribbean countries that have citizen by investment, for example, CBI, where, if you buy into the country a property, you can get citizenship. That is quite attractive. And just, I think, lifestyle migration. When I'm in Jamaica, just recently, I was by my office, and as I was going down the elevator, I looked up and I saw the mountains. And as you know, it's been kind of a rainy time, so the mountains are quite green and lush. And I just thought to myself, I just love Jamaica. Like, I just absolutely love Jamaica. Like, I am in the city. I have access to everything I need. And I'm looking at the mountains, the cool, lush mountains. I love to drive up to Irish Town, for example. And that's not very far at all, to go to Irish Town or Strawberry Hill. Now, when you think about it, when I visit overseas, and honestly, yes, they have everything there, but people are literally saving their money right now. There's somebody who just booked a flight to Jamaica who is looking forward to it like it's the best thing that's ever going to happen to them. So if
Okay.
somebody can live here, earn sufficiently, and live here and have access to the rest of the world, why not? Why would you not want to live here? Knowing that you can access anywhere you want to access. So, again, you know, there is definitely a lifestyle migration. And I can tell you, just being on the ground and talking to people, I'll give you some examples. Because I don't want, I don't want your viewers to think, I'm just I'm talking from experience. And I always question people because I want to know why. I just rented a couple. There's a couple, they moved from Manhattan. The husband is Jamaican, the wife is from Africa. They have a young daughter, she's maybe about 5. And they just rented a penthouse in Montego Bay from me. And I asked them, why Jamaica? Why did you move back? And what's interesting is it's easy to think persons who are living solo, you just up and make a decision. It's just you, there's no family to think about. There's no child to uproot from school and move. So think about the gravity of that decision when you have a family involved, a child, where maybe they're going to school in the States, wherever, and then now you're moving them to Jamaica. So I find it interesting, and I always ask the question. And they said that, well, they're in the film industry, so they travel all the time. And they came to Jamaica all the time, and they realized we can live here and still be able to travel, go wherever they need to go for their projects. But also they stated that they believe, unlike the Jamaican educational system, they believe it is a quality system that we have here in Jamaica. And so they saw it as a great option for their child to be in the Jamaican educational system versus being in the States where they're coming from. So they can have that benefit. They can still work and travel worldwide. There's no restrictions on that. And they can live. And right now, their apartment, they're looking at the ocean. Versus in Manhattan, where you're looking on, I love Manhattan, by the way. I'm not saying
No,
anything
yeah.
bad about Manhattan, but I'd rather look on the ocean than look on another building. So,
Building, right? So,
we don't have to dig too deep to find out why. Why is this interest in the Caribbean? The Caribbean is literally paradise. We have the same weather throughout the year. That is something I
well,
personally absolutely
yeah.
love. I could not do the seasons really. So, things like that, because I think especially post-COVID, you have more persons that thought deeply about quality of life and,
Yeah, no,
what
true.
they want
Because
out of life.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, indeed, because I remember I was literally trapped for a year. I couldn't get home. There's no way I could get home. I was out for a year. So I totally
Yeah.
understand that. But
Yeah.
can you guide me through the regulatory aspect of it now? So for example, when you're selling a property and so on, walk me through the process. How timely is the process for closure for the closing of the deal, meaning going through all the regulatory stuff, the humdrum part of it, not the glamorous part of showing the units and getting people all excited about the country and the property. Walk me through that part of it.
Okay, so as you stated, we're starting from the point of the sale. So just for the purpose of your audience, that would assume that you would have spent some time searching for your property. You would have looked through everything that's available. You've identified this is what you want. You've made an offer. The next step is that your offer is considered and accepted or rejected. Assuming your offer is accepted, then the next step is that you are sent your attorney, because you need attorney representation. Your attorney is sent a sales agreement from the vendor, that's the seller. There is some review. Now, the sale process, which includes signing the sales agreement, which may have some back and forth as they may need to tweak the agreement. You make your deposit at this point once you sign the agreement. And I would say thereabout after that happens, you've signed the agreement and made your deposit. The process should take about 3 months. Now, there's 2 types of transactions. You have cash and you have mortgage. As you imagine, with a mortgage, you're going through the bank. It may take a bit of a longer time. I know the banks have had a thrust towards making this process easier, faster, simpler. Some banks have been able to accomplish that, not all. But the general time frame is 3 months, but my experiential answer is that you're looking at 3 to maybe 5 months, and it can be longer in some instances. If you're doing a mortgage, you will need to do a valuation on the property because the banks need that. You will need to do a survey ID report. So now you have to book that inspection. You have to wait on that report, which may take 2 weeks. The banks have to go through your mortgage and approve you. After that, they would issue a letter of undertaking. Then the transfer has to be done, and so it involves quite a bit. But I know generally there's been a move to make it faster, but practically I would say 3 to 5 months.
Well, 5 months. 5 months is a long time. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
All right, but now let us look at your industry now, because I notice you all have to have your ID, your registration number, and it has to be displayed. It shows that the whole, because first time people used to just basically go out and hustle, do as real estate as a hustle,
Yeah.
basically, and it's
Yeah.
more structured. Walk me through that process, and what are the safeguards to ensure and that we do have credible representatives in the market, and not, you do know you have shysters from time to time who
Yeah,
try a thing.
absolutely, Joseph. So, I mean, strong governance is very crucial to sustaining investor confidence in any market. And I am quite proud of Jamaica in terms of the real estate infrastructure that we have here in terms of governance. We are heavily regulated here in Jamaica. So we have the Realtors Association of Jamaica, which is a body of realtors who form this association where we're governed by certain ethics, practices, procedures in how things are to be done, how we are to treat our clients, how we are to treat each other as agents. First and foremost, however, we are governed by the Real Estate Act of Jamaica, which falls under the Real Estate Board for governance. Now, each realtor has to have a license that is issued from the Real Estate Board. Now, if you are a real estate agent, that license cannot be issued to you as an individual unless it has to be issued through a company. So you must be attached to a real estate company, right? And so that is how you get your license. So I'm licensed. I am with Jamaica Sotheby's International Realty. Now we also have our AML and POCA compliance, which is Proceeds of Crime Act that we have to comply with. There are other bodies that are subject to this compliance, like attorneys, banks. So you have Know Your Customer, KYC. We have to do that as well. As you know, a real estate transaction is the largest transaction that anyone will ever do in their lifetime. I mean, you have homes, cars, and then life. So hardly anything is going to cost more than a real estate deal, really. And so because of that, it is very important to have compliance and regulations in this area to make sure that we are acting within legal frameworks, both with clients who are buying and just generally throughout the industry. So we have these in place. Now, how can the general public know? And it's very important, I think, that they know, how can I find out that if I call Keody Thompson, that she's a licensed realtor, she's licensed to handle this business, she's licensed in this area. You can go on the Real Estate Board's website. They have a search bar where you can search for developers, you can search for real estate agents, and you can search real estate company. So you can go on the REB. It's I don't remember the full website, but it's Real Estate Board Jamaica. Just Google it, and you can search my name, and it will tell you if I am a licensed realtor and if my license is active. Because somebody can also be in the business and they're no longer in the business. if they're, because we have to be licensed every year.
Of course. Well, all right, Keody, we have to leave it there, my friend, for this time. So thank you so much for your insights. As Keody Thompson, who is a global realtor with what is it, Jamaica Sotheby's
Jamaica Sotheby's International Realty.
Realty. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just
And as I recently discovered, she's also a podcaster. An absolute natural.
yes, I encourage everyone to watch a recent interview. We have a program called Dinner with Jamaica Sotheby's International Realty, and I have an episode on YouTube where I interviewed the great Michael Lee Chin. It's very insightful and informative, and I encourage everyone to go and tune into that episode and watch it and comment, like, let me know what you think. But
Indeed,
Joseph, it
my
was
friend.
such an honor being on your show. I've known Joseph
Yeah,
for a
man.
very long time. He did not just randomly call me because he saw me on Instagram. He's a good friend of mine that I know very well from his time in Guyana, in CARICOM, and a dear friend of mine. And he's always been a great supporter and encourager of me and my career. So, Joseph, thank you so much.
Absolutely, my friend. I will never change that.
All right, have a great week.
In a world of constant change, insight is your greatest asset. At Joseph Cox & Associates, we empower innovation across the Caribbean. Whatever your challenge, we can help. We're proudly customer-centric, offering bespoke solutions tailored to every partner. From innovation and digital transformation to leadership and policy, our services are designed to deliver lasting impact. We partner with leaders across sectors, from finance and government to energy, tech, and infrastructure, helping them navigate complexity with confidence. Our work is grounded in collaboration. We connect regional leaders through powerful networks, driving change through joint research. Discover more at josephcox.org. Joseph Cox & Associates. Insight, experience, impact.
Welcome to Market Watch. I'm Joseph Cox, bringing you the latest economic and financial updates across the Caribbean and beyond. Starting with economic governance, the IMF says Haiti has met all targets under the staff monitored program, maintaining zero monetary financing, raising reserves to just $1.5 billion, and keeping public debt at just 12.4% of GDP. In Trinidad and Tobago, the $59.2 billion budget forecasts a $3.9 billion deficit pegged to oil at $73.25 US and gas at $4.25. New fiscal measures include a 0.25% asset levy on banks and insurers, a 3% NIS rate hike, and a gradual retirement age increase from 60 to 65 by 2036, plus a landlord surcharge, 2.5% to 3.5% of rental income, among others. The budget also cuts fuel prices by $1 and removes VAT from basic foods. In the Bahamas, web shop operators are seeking a 25-year monopoly extension on gaming licenses, a move critics call anti-competitive. Meanwhile, the government has delayed redundancy insurance reforms after business backlash. In Jamaica, the Port Authority is weighing a new export port in St. Thomas to tap demand from Guyana's construction boom, where imports of gravel and limestone have surged 250% since 2023. In the Cayman Islands, Finance Minister Ralston Anglin unveiled a $3.9 billion revenue plan for 2026 to 2028, raising $209 million in new fees to fund health, education, and infrastructure. Separately, tourism remains a bright spot, with stay-over arrivals forecast to rise 6.4% annually through 2029, the fastest in the Caribbean. Across the region, digital transformation and capital markets are also in motion. Liberty Caribbean launched Barbados' first 5G network, targeting full coverage by 2026. And in a long overdue disclosure, Caribbean Airlines filed its 2016 audited accounts, revealing a $695 million loss and a $2.2 billion deficit, with auditors citing incomplete records and weak controls. In the meantime, American Airlines will expand Caribbean service this holiday season, adding routes to Jamaica, Dominica, the Bahamas, and Puerto Rico as travel demand surges. Turning to the markets, on the foreign exchange front, regional currencies were largely stable this week. The Jamaican dollar traded at 161.10 to the US, while the TNT dollar held at $6.77. The Barbados dollar and Belize dollar remained pegged at near 2 to 1, and the OECS dollar stayed firm at 271. Guyana's dollar traded at 218, while the Haitian gourd eased slightly to 131.61. Across regional stock markets, performance was mixed. The JSE index rose 0.27% to close at 322,479. Trinidad's All TNT index slipped 0.78%. The ECSC edged up 0.08%. All other indices remained unchanged. The top gainers this week were 138 Student Living, up 22.74%, and First Rock Real Estate, up 13.14%. Top losers, Angostura Holdings down 11.68% and Berger Paints down 7.16%. Now that's it for this edition of Market Watch. I'm Joseph Cox. Global Pulse is up next. This is CBR. This is your Global Pulse. I'm Joseph Cox. The IMF has raised its 2025 global growth outlook to 3.2%, up from 3% in July, citing resilient supply chains and AI-driven investment. But it warns that a full-scale U.S.-China trade war, with tariffs already at 100%, could shave up to 1.8 percentage points of global GDP by 2027. That forecast comes as Washington and Beijing extend their tariff battle to global shipping. Both sides have imposed reciprocal port fees on vessels tied to their registries, covering cargo from oil to consumer goods. Analysts estimate the levies could hit 15% of tanker capacity and 11% of container ships. The IMF's fiscal monitor also warns that global public debt will reach 100% of world GDP by 2029, the highest since World War II, driven by structural spending pressures. In the euro area, growth is expected to hold at 1.2%, but only because of fiscal stimulus. Germany's new defense and infrastructure spending will lift debt to 92% of GDP by 2030. However, Germany's inflation ticked up again to 2.4% in September, its second monthly rise, led by transport and healthcare prices. Across the Atlantic, the U.S. shutdown continues to bite. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent estimates losses of U.S. $15 billion per day, even as he maintains optimism about AI-driven growth. Turning to the energy market, the International Energy Agency warns of a potential oil glut of 4 million barrels per day by 2026. The IEA projects demand growth of only 700,000 barrels per day next year. In Asia, the IMF lifted its growth forecast to 4.5% to 2025, saying the region will contribute 60% of global expansion, driven by AI exports and intra-regional trade. Alphabet Incorporated will invest $15 billion to build its largest AI and cloud data hub in India, anchoring Google's regional AI operations. And in tech, global smartphone shipments rose 2.6% year-on-year in Q3 to 322.7 million units, driven by AI-enabled devices and premium models. Finally, global FDI filings fell 18% this year to $20.7 billion amid tariff and political uncertainty, the lowest in 4 years. Turning to the markets, energy markets were steady this week. West Texas Intermediate crude rose to $57.54 per barrel, up 0.14%, while Brent crude climbed 0.38% to 61.29. The OPEC basket slipped 1.82% to $63.05, and natural gas advanced 2.38% to $3.01, reflecting cooler weather forecasts and higher demand. On equities, U.S. markets edged higher. The Dow Jones gained 0.52%, the S&P 500 added 0.53%, and Nasdaq rose 0.52%, supported by strong tech and energy earnings. In contrast, Europe and Asia saw broad declines. Germany's DAX fell 1.82%, London's FTSE 100 lost 0.86%, and Japan's Nikkei 225 slid 1.44%. The Hang Seng led losses down 2.48% and persistent China-US trade tensions. Overall, investors balanced optimism in U.S. corporate results against global tariff uncertainty and weaker manufacturing sentiment. Now that's your Global Pulse. I'm Joseph Cox, and this is CBR. Well, folks, that's a wrap on episode 7 of season 2 of Caribbean Business Review. Thank you to our loyal audience across all our social media platforms and MKR Radio. We appreciate your continued support as we live by our mantra that knowledge is strength, but information is power. A special thanks to our guest this week, Keody Thompson, Global Realtor at Jamaica Sotheby's International Realty, for her insights on the Caribbean real estate boom. Here are some of the key takeaways. In terms of localized boom and shift in demand, Jamaica's real estate surge is concentrated in key areas driven by post-COVID lifestyle shifts and strong diaspora investment. In terms of affordability and urban pressures, rising prices and new development orders risk deepening inequality and displacement in urban centers. And in terms of opportunity and oversight, short-term rentals and lifestyle migration fuel growth, but regulatory compliance remains essential for sustainable expansion. Remember, you can catch this program on Spotify, and the latest edition of the Caribbean Financial Dispatch newsletter is live on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, and linked in the YouTube comments. If you wish to subscribe, please send us a note at caribbeanbusinessreview@gmail.com. As always, we invite you to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and follow Caribbean Business Review on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. Until next week, same time, same place, I'm Joseph Cox, and this has been CBR.